Furzy and Toolsy and Todd, ESPN, throwing shade at the Toronto Blue Jays. They said, let's calm down on the Trey Savage hype. Come on. Can we not enjoy like the little things in life? Give us something.
I mean, look, Toolsy, coming on when it comes to ESPN's coverage, it's not exactly great for business if the Blue Jays become one of the more relevant franchises in the American League. I can probably count on one hand how many times they've appeared on Sunday Night Baseball over the last decade or so. There's a little bit of, rotten grapes around the Yankees and their current performance. We'll see if the Orioles can trend up, but somewhere you have to temper those expectations. But I can understand why all of Toronto is a little bit apprehensive given what we've seen unfold on the ice, and that the biggest storyline around the Maple Leafs has been one middle finger of one injured, very talented winger.
You mentioned the Baltimore Orioles. Could the Orioles be the Toronto Blue Jays this season?
I think they're the dark horse in the division for sure. I mean, last year kind of felt like it came out of nowhere for them, more or less bottoming out. Now, of course, the Orioles didn't do a whole heck of a lot going into last season to bolster their rotation, and it really showed up when you can't cobble together 27 outs on a game in, game out basis. But there's still a lot of star power, at least in the way of prospects. And I think that's the team that's going to be the most intriguing to watch when you see how they're currently being priced at Bet Rivers, right around 5 or 6 to 1 to win the division. Maybe they can be the long shot and a Cinderella story, so to speak, while everyone talks about the Yankees and Jays kind of neck and neck, and we figure out what exactly the Red Sox are going to put out there, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday throughout the dog days of summer.
The Blue Jays continue to be linked to every single player that's available. There's not many left, but Framber Valdez is still out there. A great arm. People suggesting the Jays should go after him, but if they did land him, that just causes more problems than it does fix anything.
I mean, I didn't know there were any players actually out there that could be defined as truly impactful. So to your point, that player pool has dried up quickly. But if you can get Framber Valdez on a franchise-friendly deal, I don't think it ever hurts to have too many arms in this day and age of Major League Baseball. You do have to figure out how to deploy all these guys and what the rotation is going to look like. But it feels inevitable that by the time we get to the middle of April, every team in Major League Baseball will have 2 starters and 2 to 3 relievers that are on the 10-day IL already with shoulder discomfort, problems with their elbow. And it usually takes until about May 10th before we see the first player on every roster end up needing season-ending Tommy John surgery with the way Major League Baseball is played in 2026.
Do the Yankees and Red Sox have everyone exactly where they want them? They say, for the first time in forever, no one's talking about us.
I don't think the Yankees have anybody where they want them any year going in, and it's not a roster that did a whole lot to try and bolster their postseason prospects by any stretch of the imagination. They always feel like they're one Aaron Judge injury away from really struggling to generate offense. And for the Red Sox, it almost feels like it's an organization in flux, trying to figure out what they want to be, how they want to try and build their roster. Do they want to claim that they're a poverty franchise? Do they want to invest in talent? It's so tough to figure out the dynamics around one of the perennial blue bloods, at least over the 15, 20 years, and one of the more passionate fan bases that you're going to find in the American League East.
Furzy, you mentioned the Toronto Maple Leafs. They lost to the Sabres 7-4 Tuesday night. Was that the death blow to their playoff chances?
It feels like they've kind of been teetering. And when you're having a closed door meeting with Craig Berube and the team leaders, and that's the kind of effort that you get from start to finish, you begin to wonder when the Leafs will raise the white flag. Now, fortunately for them, they don't have to play in front of their home faithful until after the Olympic break. But we'll see exactly what kind of fruit, if any, this road trip yields, because I think the hard discussions that'll have to be had in the front office for the Leafs is, what do we have in the way of assets that other teams may want that we could trade away? I mean, you come away from this road trip going 1-4, or let's say picking up 4 points max. I think you really have to do a little bit of soul searching and realize this isn't going to be our year. We can't try and add pieces at the deadline. And even while the East appears to be a little bit more wide open than what we've seen after the Carolina Hurricanes and the Tampa Bay Lightning, I think you have to try and start to accumulate assets as best they can, knowing how much the Leafs have traded away in recent seasons. And look, they have a little bit of a goaltender that if there's a market for, Anthony Stolarz or Joseph Woll or Dennis Hildeby, I think you seriously have to consider trading one of those guys if that becomes the best trade chip to get some draft capital in return.
No pressure on the Canadian men's and women's hockey teams at the Olympics, but as it stands right now, there's potentially only going to be two Canadian teams in the postseason in the NHL. Two. That's it. Canadians and Oilers.
Not exactly what the Canadian media partners are looking for, given the glut of teams that they had last year, with Ottawa coming from off the pace and getting that Battle of Ontario opening round series. We know the Oilers have kind of been the stalwarts there. Winnipeg surprising everybody with how well they played last season. If you're making me set an over-under on how many Canadian teams get into the playoffs, I'll actually make it 2.5. And if you were going to give me a favorable number there, I'd look to go over. The one team that intrigues me the most out of all the Canadian sides right now that hasn't reached their full potential, and there's been a lot of course, off-ice drama, would be the Ottawa Senators. If they're able to get some goaltending and get that save percentage up, that is a roster, Toolsy, for me, that is way too talented to be sitting where they are in the standings. So that might be the definition of buy low, and we'll see if they can start a little bit of that uptick as early as Wednesday night as home underdogs against the Colorado Avalanche. But that of all the Canadian sides would be the one that I might want to buy a yes on to make the playoffs. I don't think Winnipeg turns around their season. We know Vancouver and Calgary are in full fire sale mode, and I think it's something that the Leafs should seriously consider as well, knowing that that team is nowhere close to competing to even win one playoff series as it stands at this juncture.
It can't be understated how good the Eastern Conference has been this year. As it stands right now, there's one team under 500. That's the last place New York Rangers. Every team is over 500, and not just over, like the Senators are second last. They're 24, 21, and 7.
Well, here's the crazy thing, and it's always fun as a hockey fan. If you go in and you take those overtime losses and you put them in the right column and just call them losses for what they should be, how much different these records look. And the reason I can say that, Dan, is because the Golden Knights have kind of been one of the bigger beneficiaries of all of that, with the accumulation of one loser point per night, or so it feels like, when they were going through real stretches where they couldn't win in overtime, they couldn't win a shootout. So the NHL does exactly what they need to, with a little bit of that standing cosmetics and the aesthetics with that third column that's there. But it is fun for any hockey fan that really gets bored and is looking to kill time on a Friday at work. I'll go through, take those overtime losses, tack them into the loss column, and it'll give you a better indication of exactly how some of these teams have played so far this season.
Willie Nylander's giving of the finger to the camera. He apologized. If the Leafs were making the playoffs and everything was right in Leafland, we would remember it, but nothing much would be made of it. Now it's going to be a meme for the Maple Leaf season.
I mean, I'm all about making it a meme, but is this really where we're at? That William Nylander needs to be fined for this kind of gesture? We tell hockey players all the time that they need to show a little bit more personality. I'm not sure this is what anyone is looking for, but let's not make a mountain out of a molehill. If this is the worst thing that an NHL player sitting in a press box or away from his team is going to do, and we're going to try and fine him for that, we have much bigger fish to fry, especially for some of the on-ice incidents that we see when it comes to high hits and everything else. Sure, it's not a look that the Leafs want by any stretch of the imagination from one of their remaining elite talents. But at the same time, the fact that this has become such a big news story, relatively speaking, is downright mind-boggling and a little bit myopic from the NHL overall.
We will dive into the full list of props next week when we talk to you about the Super Bowl. But in the lead up to that, I have a question about length of the anthem, because that is rehearsed and most likely pre-recorded. So there is insider knowledge. What is the max bet on that length of the anthem for the Super Bowl?
Not nearly what you'd like to be able to get down on the kind of market with a predetermined outcome, so to speak. So you have to be a little bit creative. You have to move through various channels, but for the most part, in the provinces and states that do offer this particular market, it is a very low stakes wager for just the reasons that you outline. I mean, a man like yourself that spent so much time hobnobbing with the high-end entertainment types during his stint in Southern California, I figure you send one text, they send you the rehearsal right to your phone, and you can get it down to the 10th of a second to be able to move the kind of freight that you'd like on a market along these lines. For me, this particular genre is a little bit outside my purview. I used to have better information when it came to country music stars that were singing the national anthem. And let's just say, Toolsy, that typically started my Super Bowl Sunday off at 1-0. And it was a lot easier to blow money betting a number of other props, knowing that you already had one winner in the bank before the game even kicked.
Once the anthem singer is announced, I would love to know the view count on other times they've sang the anthem at an event from after it was announced, because that view count goes way up because people go into studying that.
Oh, for sure. You'll see YouTube videos spike a ton. And I believe the anthem singer is Charlie Puth this time around. So for those folks that want to
So what's Green Day? Because Green Day's doing something too.
I think they're the opening act, opening band. I have no idea how some of this stuff fits together. That's all above my pay grade. But good on Green Day for taking the opportunity. I mean, it's actually a little story about me. First CD I actually purchased when I was 11 or 12, Dookie. Still holds a very special place with a little basket case and Longview mixed in there. But in terms of Charlie Puth and trying to look at what the time will be for his anthem, to your point, there are plenty of YouTube videos for a lot of these guys when they've sung it in the past. You're going to want to try and dissect. But a little bit of word to the wise, given the stage and the magnitude of this event, typically we see the pace for a lot of these performers quicken a little bit. So you may want to shave off a second, maybe a second and a half, if you really feel comfortable and confident with what you're going to get. And do read the fine print. You're never sure if it ends with the final word, home of the brave, or if they decide they want to go into a lengthy artistic rendition that sometimes they can run it back multiple times and really try and elongate their performance.
It's being played at Levi's Stadium. My guess is that this is not a great Super Bowl venue because there are the mainstays, New Orleans, you got Miami, you got the warm weather. Of course, there's warm weather in San Francisco, but in my mind, I don't see it being the Super Bowl atmosphere that people have become known to love.
I always feel like the best Super Bowls are the ones where the stadium is kind of right in the middle of a major metropolitan area. You can see all the buildup. You can see that level of energy, excitement. You mentioned New Orleans, everything from around Bourbon Street, Canal Street, extremely walkable. Even out here when we had it for the first time at Allegiant Stadium a couple of years ago, I mean, Las Vegas Boulevard, a stone's throw away. You could head down to Mandalay Bay. You take the bridge right across. Whereas in Santa Clara, there's not going to be the infrastructure around the stadium. We saw it in New York where there wasn't a whole heck of a lot. And it was an event that just kind of blended into everything that was going on in New York City at the time, that it wasn't necessarily the focal point. So I'm kind of with you in that regard. And even in Miami Gardens, not exactly close, but at least most of the entertainment and the activities are in and around that South Beach area. So you can have tremendous backdrops right there on the ocean. You have all the nightclubs, you have the restaurants. I'm not sure Santa Clara and San Francisco, to your point, are going to be considered one of the elite Super Bowl destinations. And I guess we'll ask similar questions when it moves to SoFi next year to see how Los Angeles embraces the big game as well.
Since we're doing props next week, let's get these two out of the way. Your Super Bowl pick and your Super Bowl MVP.
So Super Bowl pick for me, I am going to take the underdog New England Patriots. I think they can win this game outright. I have not bet the side, though. I want to see if this number will climb. Ideally, I'd love to be able to grab 6 in the betting market. Not quite sure we're going to get there. But I think New England finds a way. And a lot of people are going to criticize their strength of schedule, and rightfully so. The fact that their offense has been rather anemic through the first 3 playoff games thus far. But I think some of that has been suppressed by 2 nasty weather games, playing in the blizzard in Denver in the AFC Championship and dealing with the freezing rain in their defensive-minded win against the Houston Texans. And I have some questions about this Seahawks team. Not necessarily what they've accomplished all season long, but if the Patriots take away one of their top weapons in JSN, they can sell out to stop the run. Will Sam Darnold be able to do enough? And instead of taking Drake May, which I know would be the low-hanging fruit for someone picking the Patriots, I'm going to go to the backfield, and I'm going to look at Ramondre Stevenson. I think there's a path for him to take home a little bit of hardware if he can get to 75 total yards from scrimmage, a couple of touchdowns, whether it's in the rushing or receiving category. So I'll take a bit of a long shot there with Ramondre, and I will take the Patriots 23-20 to knock off the Seattle Seahawks.
Appreciate it, Furzy. Get those props ready for next week. We'll talk to you then.